It's based on the true story of a photo album from Auschwitz that was sent to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C. in 2007.
A single photograph can hide a world of secrets. Deep in a battered album, a cheerful scene is seen. Men laughing by a lake, sharing snacks beneath a bright sky. On the surface, it looks like any holiday snapshot. However, every smiling face belongs to an SS officer tied to history's darkest crimes. How did these bright moments fit alongside horror beyond imagining? In the next few minutes, you will travel from a Frankfurt trash bin to the icy camp gates, find out truths that chill the heart, and see how a photo album turned into a global warning. But what if that cheerful photo, those smiles, that sunlight, wasn't just a glimpse into the past, but a clue, a breadcrumb left behind on purpose? Who would dare do that? Trash can in Frankfurt. Late in 1946, Europe still bore the deep wounds of a war that changed the world. In Frankfurt, streets lay strewn with broken bricks and shattered glass. On Beethovenstrasse, a young United States counterintelligence officer moved quietly through a half-empty apartment block. He had orders to search for Nazi files, plans, or any hidden documents that might explain how the regime had fallen so quickly. His boots clicked on cracked tile, and dust rose with every step. In one small flat, he spotted a battered leather album lying beside a toppled chair. It looked out of place among the ruins. He picked it up, brushing away a layer of dirt. Its spine was cracked, and the cover bore no title, only a faint smudge of undecipherable ink. Filled with curiosity, he carried it back to his temporary office down the hall. Under the harsh beam of a single lamp, he opened the album. Dozens of glossy photographs fell into view. The first showed a group of men laughing beside a lake. Their uniforms were neat, their smiles bright as they held mugs and plates of what seemed like cake. In the next, the same men stood under a small evergreen tree, its branches decked with ornaments. Other shots caught them fishing on a wooden dock, rowing a boat against a backdrop of forested hills, and toasting each other around a flickering campfire. The scenes felt warm and inviting, like any family gathering. Even so, something did not fit. He turned a photo over and saw a stamp marking military use. The date on the back was handwritten, July 1944. He studied the faces, comparing them to lists of prisoners, officers, and known personnel. None matched. His heart beat faster at the thought that these carefree moments belonged to men linked to darker events. He traced a faint mark on one man's sleeve and recognized the eagle emblem used at Auschwitz. A shiver coursed through his spine. The officer spent the next 2 nights at his desk, flipping through every page of the album he had found. He sketched some notes: a soldier in uniform, a fishing rod in hand, and another holding a loaf of bread near a small stove. He wrote down every detail he could see, such as cabin styles, shoreline features, and holiday decorations. He hoped to find records linking these retreats to a particular unit or camp. When morning patrols began, he shared the album with his colleagues. A small group huddled around the desk, whispering hypotheses. One thought it came from an SS leisure unit. Another guessed it was a propaganda effort to show a humane side of officers. They passed the album from hand to hand, each turn of a page deepening the mystery. Finally, with no clear answer, the officer placed the album in a sturdy trunk, locked it, and left Frankfurt on assignment. Time marched forward. The officer moved to other posts, eventually retiring in Maryland. His family talked of his stories about Europe, but he never mentioned the forgotten trunk. Generations passed. The album lay silent, gathering dust in an attic corner, until 2007, when a volunteer at a local historical society heard rumors of a box filled with rare wartime photos. the retired officer agreed to send everything to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C. Museum curators unwrapped the album and shivered as they recognized what stood behind the holiday scenes. They noted the distinct SS collar tabs, the exact dates, and the cabin designs. Within weeks, a team of historians matched one face to SS Obersturmführer Karl Höcker, adjutant to the Auschwitz commandant. They identified the lakeside resort as Solahütte, built by prisoners near Birkenau. Letters and supply orders confirmed that officers received the retreat as a reward for their good service. News of the album's arrival spread quickly. Researchers called it a stunning discovery, a record of men who oversaw terrible crimes and were rewarded instead of being brought to book. Survivors who saw the images spoke of a strange pain, how injustice could exist where so much suffering occurred. The album made people realize that life went on despite the atrocities that had happened in the past, with no one being held accountable. How painful must it have been, especially for the victims who survived. Today, that leather-bound book rests under glass in the museum. Visitors lean in to study each photo, noting the contrast between smiling faces and the uniforms that promised death. Museum guides explain how every image helped piece together the human story behind the statistics of genocide. The album stands as evidence of past crimes that were covered up by powerful people at that time. It's really heartbreaking. But how does a man go from counting coins in a quiet bank to signing off death orders at Auschwitz? What turns a polite teller into a willing executioner? Karl Höcker. From teller to SS. Karl Höcker was born in 1908 in Wuppertal, an industrial town in western Germany. His father worked many hours in a textile mill, and his mother ran a home bakery. As a child, Höcker watched his parents manage money and ledgers. He learned to add numbers on scraps of paper long before he ever held a rifle. After school, Höcker took an apprenticeship at a bank in his hometown. He sorted coins, stamped deposit slips, and watched tellers count money. He earned praise for his neat handwriting and well-written checks. He felt pride when managers trusted him with franking stamps and official seals. He kept a little notebook to track each task he completed. When the SS advertised clerical positions in 1933, he saw a great opportunity. The party was growing, promising stability in a time of economic hardship. He applied and took exams in basic administration. Soon, he swapped his gray teller suit for a black SS uniform. He received a pistol, learned to march on parade grounds, and drilled in salutes and rigid posture. His first SS post was outside Munich, in an office that handled payment for guards at camps. He filed forms, logged supply requests for uniforms and boots, and sent reports through a smoky telex line. He worked under the glare of desk lamps, typing each line with care. He became known for spot-on calculations that eased supply shortages. Fellow clerks nicknamed him the Banker, a nod to his past life. In January 1943, a train from Munich carried him to Oswiecim station in southern Poland. He did not yet know the scale of the camp named Auschwitz. He arrived in winter, when trees stood bare and roofs sagged under snow. He stepped off the platform and saw watchtowers flanking barbed wire fences. He carried suitcases. One held dress uniforms, the other held well-worn banking notebooks with other important belongings. His new role was adjutant to SS Sturmbannführer Richard Baer, deputy commandant of Auschwitz. Baer summoned him on the first day. Inside a modest office near the commandant's house, Baer spread a stack of papers. "I need accurate order deliveries," he said. He spoke in clipped tones, pointing at train schedules, supply manifests, and prisoner work logs. Höcker set up his desk with neat rows of forms. Each morning, he checked arrival lists from the railway station. He recorded how many rail cars arrived with coal, agricultural supplies, or glassware for the officers' canteen. He stamped orders for rations and uniforms, then copied them for distribution. He tracked leave requests from guards who wanted a break. He arranged retreats for them by a lake east of the camp. He oversaw guard rotations. He marked who served by watchtowers, who managed prisoner barracks, and who took meals in the main mess hall. Each rotation gave officers a short escape. Sometimes he signed permission for 3 days at Solohuta, a wooden resort built by prisoner labor. There, SS men could fish, sing, or relax in cabins. He never joined them, but filed the orders and kept photocopies for his files. At his desk, Höcker noticed the harsh routines beyond his window. Smoke rose from brick chimneys that burned ash from bodies inside crematoria. He heard distant cries when prisoners marched to work. However, daily orders never mentioned those details. His job focused on supplies and numbers that balanced without emotion. In the spring of 1944, an order came for a massive influx of Hungarian Jews. Nearly 300,000 people arrived in weeks. Höcker's office processed the train documents without question. He stamped thousands of papers, marking some for labor and marking others for evacuation. He did not know what happened after the evacuation. His journals noted dates and numbers, not destinations. Back in his quarters, Höcker kept a leather album of pictures showing officers at ease. He wrote names on the backs: Ernst, Walter, and Fritz. They wore dress uniforms and held mugs of beer. In one photo, he stood by the lake with a fishing rod. In another, he sat beneath a fir tree at Christmas. He wrote some small notes beside each image. After the war, Höcker melted into civilian life. He claimed to be a bank clerk. Investigators questioned him in 1965, but lacked witnesses who could place him inside gas chambers. He walked free. He ran a hardware shop and rarely spoke of his past. He destroyed many documents, but kept the leather album hidden. He later died in the year 2000. When the album surfaced in 2007 at the Holocaust Museum, it shocked everyone. Those pictures showed the same man who managed Auschwitz's most chilling machinery. But just when the past seemed buried, one photo changed everything. It wasn't just guards laughing or officers posing. It was something far darker. Could this be the proof history had been missing? Unmasking the Angel of Death. Among the album's most startling images are the first known photographs of Dr. Joseph Mengele at Auschwitz. Mengele, dubbed the Angel of Death, performed horrific medical experiments on inmates, particularly twins, seeking twisted scientific answers. Before these photos, his appearance was known only through prisoner testimonies and later court files. Dr. Joseph Mengele arrived at Auschwitz in May 1943. Born in Günzburg in 1911, he earned doctorates in medicine and anthropology at the University of Munich. He joined the SS in 1937 and trained as a camp doctor. At Auschwitz, his official title was camp physician, but prisoners soon feared him as the Angel of Death. Until 2007, no photograph showed his face at the camp. Only witness accounts described his sharp eyes and calm voice. When Karl Höcker's album reached the Holocaust Museum, the first known images of Dr. Joseph Mengele were found. One photo shows him in a crisp black uniform standing beside a small fir tree. He wears a peaked cap, and his boots are polished to a shine. A simple wreath hangs behind him. He glances at wrapped packages placed on a wooden table. His posture is relaxed, almost casual, as if greeting friends at a winter gathering. A second snapshot shows him seated at a round table outdoors. A half-smoked pipe rests between his fingers. His jacket is unbuttoned at the top, revealing a white shirt beneath. Beside him, two SS officers tilt wine glasses toward each other. The men smile, their cheeks rosy in the cold air. In the background, other officers chat under strings of lanterns hung from tree branches. These images contrast sharply with József Mengele's duties inside the camp. He reviewed records each morning, noting prisoner arrivals and health reports. He led the selection process on the arrival ramp. Trains brought thousands of Hungarian Jews in the summer of 1944. József Mengele and other doctors stepped off platforms, watched guards herd prisoners, and pointed out those fit for work, or sent to the right, a code for the gas chambers. He recorded their names, ages, and whether siblings stood together. He held a special interest in twins. He believed twins might unlock secrets of heredity. He performed daily exams, measuring height, weight, and head size before sending many children to their deaths. He carried medical instruments in a brown leather case, syringes, scalpels, and vials labeled in neat script. Prisoners shared his calm demeanor as he injected substances into their arms, seeking to change eye color or test reactions. His notes included growth charts, sometimes with crude diagrams of internal organs. In the album, one image captures him on a wooden bench, examining a notebook as officers lean in. The badge on his collar shows his rank, SS Hauptsturmführer. A single candle flickers on the bench beside a number of files. No cage bars or guards appear, only the quiet woods around them. He seems absorbed in paperwork, his face lit by daylight and the candle's glow. A third photograph shows him standing alone on a snowy path. He grips the lapel of his greatcoat with one gloved hand. Snowflakes cling to his cap. Behind him, cabins dot the hillside. He tilts his head as if listening to a voice off camera. His expression is unreadable, neither warm nor harsh. It is the face of a man accustomed to both command and observation. Historians puzzled over these scenes. How did a doctor tied to mass murder take moments to breathe and smile? The photos proved he moved freely among colleagues without guards at his side. They also showed no sign of prisoner presence. He appeared as an ordinary officer on break, not as someone overseeing an industrial killing center. Experts matched picture dates to Höcker's supply logs. The fir tree snapshot is dated December 1944, after the last major deportations from Hungary. By then, Mengele had overseen thousands of selections. He had no official holidays, yet he shows up in these leisure scenes. These images suggest he left camp duties for short respites, leaving paperwork and selections to junior officers. The album also sheds light on his relationships with other SS staff. In one photo, he claps a comrade on the shoulder, both laughing. They share a flask. That man, identified later as SS Untersturmführer Günther Grimwald, served under József Mengele in the medical office. Their camaraderie in the photos contrasts with the distant, fearful figure described in survivor testimonies. After the war, József Mengele fled west, then to South America. No photos captured him smiling at lakesides after Auschwitz. He eluded capture until his death in Brazil in 1979. The Höcker album remains the only record of his time in uniform among fellow officers, marking a rare glimpse of his private side. Through these photographs, we see how the man who chose life or death for thousands went scot-free and was never held accountable for the atrocities he had committed. That was a gross crime against humanity, which should have never gone unpunished. His victims deserved justice. This angel of death deserved to rot behind bars with no mercy. But here's the disturbing part. While Auschwitz burned with screams just 30 kilometers away, these men were sipping schnapps by the lake. laughing like nothing was wrong. What kind of place could let monsters forget they were monsters? Solahütte, SS Vacation Paradise. Solahütte lay about 30 kilometers south of Auschwitz, beside a lake framed by tall pines. SS officers spoke of it as a slice of home, a place to rest after weeks on duty. The camp command ordered it built in early 1944. They chose the spot for its calm water and quiet environment, far from watchtowers and prisoner barracks. To the officers, the lake and the forest felt like another world, one where the strains of camp life could fade for a little while. Prisoners from nearby Birkenau were ordered to cut trees and clear the ground to make roads and cabins. They hauled logs by hand, stacked them in neat piles, and hammered boards beneath the watchful eyes of armed guards. Many men worked barefoot or in thin sandals that rubbed against stones and roots. They ate boiled cabbage and black bread, while the SS ate fresh meat and cheese. A handful of officers checked on progress, noting dates and names in small ledgers. By the summer of 1944, 4 wooden cabins stood ready. Each had a porch and a sloped roof to shed rain. Inside, stoves stood in corners for heating. The floors were bare planks, and the windows had glass panes. Thin mattresses lay on wooden bed frames, and small tables held metal cups and plates. One cabin served as a dining hall with long benches and a pot-bellied stove where cooks warmed stew. Another held a small supply room with sacks of flour and sacks of sugar. Officers earned a stay at Solahütte as a reward. Those who met transport quotas or kept the camp running smoothly received orders stamped in triplicate. They packed spare uniforms and a small suitcase, then boarded trucks early in the morning. The journey took an hour along a muddy track. At the lake, they traded rifles for fishing rods. They could stay 2 or 3 days before rotating back to Auschwitz to replace their colleagues. Many officers walked to the water's edge to cast lines for trout. Others formed small bands around a guitar or accordion. They sang folk songs in low voices, sometimes clapping oak boards together. Meals arrived by cart: roast pork with cabbage, fresh rolls, and sweet puddings made from potatoes and milk. Men raised their mugs to the sky, talking of home, promotions, or simple pleasures. Prisoners returned each evening to chop firewood and refill water barrels. They drew water from the lake in wooden buckets, their striped uniforms stained by the lake mud. SS guards barked orders if any prisoner lagged or stumbled. Some officers glanced from windows as prisoners toiled, then returned to their card games or quiet conversation. No effort was made to hide the two worlds. Leisure and labor sat side by side in plain view. As winter fell in December 1944, snow covered roofs and paths. Officers put on heavy coats and gathered under lanterns hung from tree branches. They drank hot tea and toasted each other on frozen decking. Prisoners chopped frozen logs to keep stoves burning through the night. The SS pulled their coats tight and watched the dancing flames, exchanging short stories of home. All the while, the track of the camp train lay not far away, bringing new arrivals to their fate. In January 1945, Soviet forces closed in on Auschwitz. SS guards dismantled Solahütte. They burned wooden beams or dragged them back to nearby depots. The lake cabins fell silent under melting ice. Prisoner laborers marched east, leaving behind empty foundations and half-burned logs. After the war, locals found scattered boards and stovepipes tangled in underbrush. Today, only a few concrete footings and rusted nails mark Solahütte's place. An archaeologist's survey turned up shards of glass and bits of enamel mugs. Photographs in the Höcker album brought the site into focus for historians. They matched cabin layouts in photos with maps drawn by prisoners. Visitors to the nearby memorial park walk the forest trails and pause by some markers where the cabins once stood. Solahuta's ruins speak in silence. Those who committed one of the gravest crimes were indeed inhumane and deeply heartless. These memories are really traumatizing. My heart goes out to the victims. But as the ruins of Solahuta whisper of vanished footsteps and burned timbers, one truth remains unbearable. Joy lived beside genocide. How could anyone laugh while the world screamed just beyond the trees? Murder amid merriment. At Auschwitz, two worlds ran side by side. Each morning, SS officers dressed in crisp uniforms while prisoners donned striped coats. Guards polished boots and called roll, then walked past barracks stacked with thin blankets. Prisoners left those wooden huts and carried buckets of water to feed stove fires. Nearby, horse-drawn carts moved logs for camp repairs. Then officers climbed onto trucks bound for Solahuta, leaving the barbed wire and watchtowers behind for a few hours of rest. At the lakeside retreat, SS men fished from wooden piers, their lines draped into dark water. They told jokes over mugs of warm tea and roasted sausages on open fires. Some sat under blankets, watching smoke rise above the trees. Others sang folk songs while an accordion played softly in a small cabin. They ate pork steaks with cabbage, fresh rolls, and sweet puddings made from potatoes and milk. They were served by other laborers. No prisoners appeared in these scenes, only officers at ease beside a calm lake. Back in the camp, the air held a different chill. In late 1944, Hungarian Jews arrived in sealed rail cars, packed tight with families. More than 100 people filled each car, often without food, water, or heat. Many collapsed before the doors opened. Those who stood formed long lines on icy platforms. SS doctors and guards sorted them without mercy. Selectees went one way for forced labor. Others went another way, where locked doors hid gas chambers. Dr. Joseph Mengele stood at the head of those lines. He wore a white coat and carried a leather medical bag. He marked names and ages on yellowed forms. Twins earned extra scrutiny for their experiments. Prisoners revealed injections to change eye color and forced surgeries. Joseph Mengele did his job with so much passion. Who on earth would find joy in such a task? Perhaps he was not mentally okay. No one in their right senses would dare harm a fellow human being. Prisoners then marched to their labor details. They chopped wood, shoveled snow, and built fences under watchful guards. Their coats hung open, offering little warmth in winter's bite. Guards aimed rifles at any stumble or slow step. A single shout or the snap of a whip drove men forward. At day's end, they returned to crowded huts where bunks held hundreds. The cabins by the lake, with their wood plank floors and stoves, stood empty. While SS men fished or shared food under fir trees, smoke curled from camp chimneys. Bodies burned in crematoria as officers relaxed in chairs around small fires. The same trucks carried fish rods one way and gas canisters the other. Photos show relaxed faces, open collars, and neat uniforms. Each smile hides an unspoken order shared and rests upon a foundation of broken lives. In January 1945, the camp emptied fast as Soviet forces neared. SS guards tore down Solahuta's cabins, dragging beams back to storehouses or burning them in fields. Prisoners marched east in long columns, their feet sinking in mud and melting ice. Officers loaded remaining supplies and drove back to Auschwitz, where few stayed to meet the liberating troops. The lake lay silent under gray skies. No more songs, no more laughter, all fading away. The album pages also show these moments clearly. Historians matched cabin designs to camp maps when they closely studied the photos. But here's the chilling part. Those carefree smiles and forest picnics, they didn't vanish. They were captured, preserved, and hidden in plain sight for over half a century. But when they finally surfaced, what did the world see? Aftermath. How the world reacted. When the Höcker album arrived at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in 2007, curators could not ignore its images. They hurried to scan each photograph and record details in their catalog. Within weeks, conservators stabilized the leather binding and delicate prints. As researchers examined cabin designs and uniforms, museum staff began planning an exhibit dedicated to these snapshots. In spring 2008, the museum opened Leisure in the Shadow of Death. Visitors entered a dim gallery where enlarged album pages lined the walls. Each photograph stood behind glass, and small labels noted dates, names, and locations. In the center, a display case held Höcker's leather album open at its most famous page. Lines formed daily, with people waiting more than an hour to see these scenes of SS officers at play. Scholars from universities around the world came to study the album. They traced supply orders and transport logs that matched photo dates. Uniform experts identified collar patches and insignia, confirming the ranks of officers in each snapshot. Geographers compared landscape features with maps drawn by former prisoners. Each detail helped solidify the album's authenticity and gave a clearer picture of life at Sollehütte and beyond. Academic journals soon published articles on the album's significance. In 2009, a paper in a leading history review outlined how the photographs altered the understanding of SS culture. By 2011, a conference at Oxford University devoted an entire panel to leisure among Nazi officers. Presenters shared findings on camp infrastructure and prisoner labor used to build recreation sites. These discussions advanced the study of daily routines in the larger system of genocide. Artists and writers took an interest as well. Playwright Moises Kaufman adapted album scenes into the off-Broadway production Here There Are Blueberries in 2018. Actors wore period uniforms and read aloud officers' letters home. In 2020, a documentary film traced the album's journey from Frankfurt trash to museum centerpiece. Authors included album images in books on Holocaust history, often as chapter openers that contrasted holiday scenes with camp records. Legal scholars debated whether the album could aid post-war prosecutions. Some argued that noting officer attendance at Sollehütte would place them in the official records of the Auschwitz command. However, no new trials emerged. Evidence from the album supported existing documentation, but did not meet standards for new charges alone. Courts in Germany and elsewhere reviewed the material but closed cases due to a lack of living witnesses. Online forums and history blogs buzzed with discussion. Researchers posted side-by-side comparisons of photographs and site surveys. Social media groups formed around identifying minor officers in the album. Museum blogs reported reader comments numbering in the thousands. Although some posts veered toward rumor, most contributors pointed to primary sources, reinforcing the album's record over speculation. Educators found a new use for the album in classrooms. High school teachers projected images during lessons on World War II. Students compared leisure photos with testimonies from survivors. University instructors assigned research papers on how camps balanced daily work and officer recreation. History textbooks updated sections on Auschwitz to include mention of Sollehütte and Höcker's album. International museums requested copies of the exhibit. From London to Tel Aviv, curators installed traveling displays featuring album prints and related artifacts. Each venue adapted labels to local languages and added context about nearby camps. Some shows included audio recordings of former inmates describing camp arrival and labor routines. The album found new audiences in Europe, Asia, and Australia over the following decade. Today, the Höcker album remains a key source for studies of Holocaust-era life inside SS structures. It has never left the Memorial Museum's collection, but its images circulate in digital archives. Researchers continue to publish detailed analyses of uniforms, cabin sites, and guard rotations. The album's survival and public display mark it as both a remarkable find and a tool for understanding how normal life carried on alongside atrocity. That album in a Frankfurt trash can became an international testament to humanity's darkest choices. What would you do if you found such an album today?